Hello, and welcome back to AI Ramblings, episode 46. We are in the Ides of March, as they say, and moving fast. Lots of things also industry wide. As usual, I want to highlight a few items and just kind of talk about some of their broader implications, and then talk about our main topic of the week from my perspective. And then, as usual, your comments, feedback, always welcome. The one broad thing I think we should just point out, and I've said this a couple of times, we're in year 4 of ChatGPT, which basically changed the world from OpenAI, showed what regular people can do with AI technology through chatbots and just command line interface. 2026 is also kind of the beginning of the next major application beyond ChatGPT, which right now the word for it, because Anthropic has the brand right now that is running away with the application, it's called CoWork, which is Anthropic's Claude LLMs. Basically, they have an application called CoWork, which is literally about a month old, but it's on its way of being a multi-billion product for them globally through enterprises and partners, etc. And they have, as investors, they have Amazon, they have Google, and as of a few weeks ago, they now have Microsoft and Nvidia. Each are investors. They collectively have invested over 15 billion. And Microsoft is losing no time, even while they're leveraging their access to OpenAI's proprietary access to their language models and so on. They are also incorporating Anthropic's products into their core products, which happens to be Copilot. And this week they launched Copilot CoWork, which is basically Anthropic's CoWork being integrated and leveraged across Microsoft's cloud infrastructure, Azure, and their application layer, which is Office 365 around the world, and soon to be sold as an upgrade for enterprise customers at $99 per seat per month, and that is supposed to give the folks a lot of access to all the CoWork functionality. What is CoWork? CoWork in general is basically the AI is moving from chatbots to agents. They're going to do more things for you, whether they're residing on your computers or in the cloud or combination of both, access to your private data, hopefully with a lot of trust and privacy safeguards. And it basically clicks around initially on the computer like you would and do things for you when you ask it, or when you express interest in certain objectives, it'll figure things out and do that. And it'll implement these things with Microsoft's wrapping around it, their security layers, their integration layers with all the Microsoft applications that people run on top of everything. So this Microsoft bundling and rebranding of Anthropic CoWork is one of the key items I wanted to touch on for this week. The other item is, we've had posts up, this will all be in the show notes. There are 3 big mega IPOs that are being anticipated in the AI space this year, in no particular order, somewhat orders. Elon's got his SpaceX Starlink XAI IPO targeted for June around his birthday. That's going to be, if plans go right, markets hold, etc., $1.25 trillion and up. So a big, mega, never been done before in history kind of IPO. The other one, of course, is OpenAI, which hopes to do something in the $1 trillion range as well. And then Anthropic is racing not too far behind, $500 billion to $1 trillion valuation. So big IPOs. But OpenAI, because it's the pole position company that everyone looks at as ChatGPT with its 900 million global weekly users and so on, it's the one that everyone is already benchmarking in terms of its IPO prospects, both their revenue and product ramp, which is extraordinary, and their infrastructure ramp, which is also very extraordinary, going from, sub gigawatt data center capacity last year to multiples of that this year, and then multiples more next year, all of which costs gazillion dollars. Just as a rule of thumb, 1 gigawatt of AI data centers is about $50 billion in Nvidia chips and other things just this year alone. That hopefully comes down over time. The big question, and I have a big Sunday post today on it as well, which is this business that investors right now are all leaning into, the big tech companies, hyperscalers, LLM companies spending, the current numbers are about 600-700 billion this year. By the time that we finish the year, it'll probably be close to $1 trillion and that much and more next year. So the question is, when do they start to recoup it? And as I talk about in my post, not just this Sunday, but for a long time now, it always takes longer. Not because it's a bad thing, it's just that new technologies take a lot of time for people to figure out how to use it scale and do useful things. So there's a lag, and that is the dynamic that everyone's worried about. While we're worried about wars in the Middle East, potential wars in China and Taiwan, and those kinds of things, geopolitical issues, the other headwinds, supply chain headwinds, memory shortages, all of those things. So I've got a detailed post on assessing 6 months early OpenAI's IPO for this year, if and when it happens. And that's the other second topic I wanted to touch on. And that kind of, because I talked about the Middle East headwinds, that was the third topic that I wanted to just touch on, which is the Middle East war. Look, geopolitics is geopolitics. I'm not going to go into the pros and cons of all of that. The reality is, though, it has been started by the U.S. and it has repercussions, and there are always unintended consequences. And for AI data centers, it's already had several points of impact, unfortunately, literally and figuratively, which is that a number of Amazon's data centers, AWS data centers, have been attacked by drones and missiles, I think up to 3 so far. There are also risks to some of the other data centers by Microsoft, by Google, potentially. OpenAI is supposed to be ramping up. I don't think they've yet done a heck of a lot of work. But this is a new overlay threat for an area that was supposed to get hundreds of millions, if not millions, of chips from Nvidia to build this data center ecosystem in the Middle East. Now with this war, even if hostilities cease in the next few days or weeks, it is a new layer of risk that investors are going to have to think through. And that is a relatively big deal in the world of AI data centers on a global basis. So I wanted to kind of underline that. The other thing is because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and everyone is just focused on 20% of the world's oil and gas comes from that area. So it has big repercussions for global economies. Asia, both developed and developing. The US, fortunately, gets more of its energy from the US, but the rest of the world, the impact is bigger. Less understood is the byproducts of producing oil and gas are certain materials like helium, which we don't think about normally. But helium happens to be a critical component in building all the semiconductors that go into everything that run our world around us, not just the data centers, which everyone focuses on, but gadgets, gizmos, laptops, smartphones, etc. And a big chunk, almost a third of the helium that the world uses, especially the semiconductor world uses in places like Taiwan and other places in Asia, comes from the Middle East, Strait of Hormuz. And that has stopped. So there's helium now is a new supply chain element that we now have to track in terms of repercussions. If we have fewer chips this year than people thought, that exacerbates the chip shortages, memory, processing, CPUs, GPUs, etc. Also this week, just as an add-on bonus, I'll just add, we'll have a lot more on this next week. Nvidia is having their annual GTC conference this week, the whole week, and their CEO founder, Jensen Huang, will have a keynote. We'll have a lot more on this on the Substack AI Reset to Zero later this week. So please track that and look for that. But these are the elements that we just continue to have to track to see the health and viability of the AI ramps, both on the positive and the negative side. And so the Middle East wars are a new headwind factor, unquestionably, that we have to think through. The last thing I wanted to touch on, which is our major topic for this week, AI ramblings, two elements: AI agents. I just started with that with the CoWork product from Anthropic and the Microsoft version of it. But AI agents continue to be the next big product wave for AI, as I've said already. But what is becoming very clear is that the way AI agents are working in these products like CoWork are basically emulating how humans interact and access the internet. The AIs literally do what we do: browse on the internet, click on things, and do buy things for us or figure things out, etc. But it's very apparent, very clear already that the computers can move a lot faster. So they actually need a version of the internet that is not built for humans, that are optimized for what I call machine to machine AI. So we need an internet for AI agents. So that it doesn't mean a separate thing that has to be built. It means new techniques that have to be built and integrated for these AIs to work much more efficiently than just doing things for us as humans, pretending to be humans. And that in itself runs into a whole bunch of body of habits and security measures on the internet, which I've written also about. Most of the time when you're trying to do anything useful on the internet, there are all these captchas. You have to prove that you're a human and not a bot. And the whole architecture, infrastructure of the internet globally is set up to basically not allow automated software to access things on your behalf. They're, bot guards, and they have to be readjusted for all these agents. So all of this has to kind of evolve very rapidly, very quickly. And I bring it up because Meta, which is one of the big tech companies, they're very active in investing in AI data centers. They're buying up a lot of the best and brightest AI talent at, sometimes at the cost of hundreds of millions per engineer. But they have been very focused on AI agents in a big way. Mark Zuckerberg, founder, CEO, is very aggressive. He was very aggressively focused on acquiring OpenClaw, which I talk about, which is an open source AI agent technology that was developed by Peter Steinberger out of Vienna, who's now works for OpenAI. But Meta has been very active. They bought Manus, which is a Chinese AI agent company now out of outside China, out of Singapore, and they are now. They just bought a company called Moltbook, which was an platform layer on top of OpenClaw's technology, and they brought on board the two people who created Moltbook in the AI agent space. It's a social network for AI agents. They didn't buy it for that product as it is. They're going to actually most likely shut it down. But the two people who created it are going to help Meta build essentially a bigger, safer social network, as it were, for AI agents. Essentially, this business of an AI agent set of applications that are built for machines, not humans. And that is very interesting. It's a small initial effort, what Meta is going to start with here. But they, along with Google and Microsoft and OpenAI and Anthropic, are all going to be doing similar things. It's a mad, mad, mad race to create this internet for AI agents. And I use that Mad Mad reference because one of my favorite movies, and I'm dating myself, and for those of you younger, it's a really fun, one of the best movies ever made, called It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, 1963. I'll have a link in the show notes. You can stream it online. And one of the funniest things you'll see is basically a whole bunch of people doing a road race that is totally off the charts crazy, not dissimilar, and a lot of echoes of what's going on in the AI world today, with all these people first chasing chatbots and AI data centers, and now obviously AI agents. So I wanted to just touch about the main topic, which is the mad, 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 mad world of AI agents and internet for humans. So that is that for the main topic. Lots of elements we can talk about, obviously there, but I wanted to at least put a pin and give you some food for thought on a Sunday. My watch or read of the week is this business of AI coding, which is the other major AI app that has kind of taken over the world by storm. Cursor and a bunch of AI coding companies, and then Anthropic with its Claude Code, and OpenAI with its Codex, and Microsoft with its Copilot, Codex, etc., have created these amazing tools for software developers in the tens of millions to be far more productive. They're not necessarily, there's a lot of debate, they're going to replace coders and people are going to need less coders. No, I'm of the view that we're going to need a lot more coders once all these applications make software programmers a lot more productive. But it's a race now. Anthropic is in the race, with the front of the race, pole position with their Claude Code, but everyone is trying to catch up. And the one company that is the furthest behind amongst the major companies in the race in this mad, mad world is Elon Musk's XAI. And so he had some big news this week where he's essentially going to rebuild a lot of the XAI software and try and build a coding version of Grok, Grok, his product. And there's a bunch of stuff that's interesting there, which I have highlighted in the show notes, that are read of the week. So if you want to catch up on how Elon is trying to catch up on the AI coding side of the equation with Grok and rebuild XAI, there's a lot of stuff to kind of think about and be aware of if you're tracking all of this mad, mad activity. And then that brings me to the obsession of the week. And as you know, the thing that I'm most obsessed of in my life is all things AI. And this year, as I just mentioned before, Nvidia's GTC AI conference is the big thing everyone looks forward to. And that is this week. Keynotes, a lot of sessions, etc. And I'll have links up on all of this. And if you want to track this, follow some of the keynotes and sessions and so on, they'll be all through the week. But this business of what Nvidia lays out on the roadmap is very important, because they plan out their product roadmap for the next 3 or 4 years. With every year they do this. And I had some very extensive posts last year, and the whole year ended up being all the software, the hyperscalers, they build around the various chips. And now the Blackwell going to the Rubin, Vera Rubin chips, and then to chips after that, the Feynman, etc. So we'll get a lot more roadmap direction on the hardware side of AI GPUs and CPUs that essentially are 70, 80 plus percent of how the AI infrastructure world works. And that's all NVIDIA. So my obsession of the week topic is NVIDIA's GTC. We'll have a lot more on it this week, so stay tuned. And that brings us to the entirety of what I wanted to touch on this week for episode 46. I hope you found it of interest. Again, comments, feedback, always welcome. And as are likes and subscribes, because it helps us with the algorithms. And we all cater to the algorithms. So I appreciate your assistance, help, thoughts, feedback. And as always, stay tuned.